Oh, Limerick is beautiful, as everybody knows. The river Shannon full of fish beside that city flows. But it's not the river, nor the fish that plays upon me mind. Now with the town of Limerick have I any fault to find. The girl I love is beautiful, she's fairer than the dawn. She lives in Garryowen, and she's called the Colleen Bawn. As the river proud and bold goes by that famed city, so proud and cold without a word, that Colleen goes by me. Well, this is a programme that might have been about any one of half a dozen famous Irish people. It could have been about Daniel O'Connell, the liberator, or Gerald Griffin, the novelist, or Dion Boucicault, the playwright, or Julius Benedict, who wrote the operas. It might even have been about a writer called Brian O'Neill, who used the pen name of Miles Nagopaline. But in fact, we're telling a story of a young girl called Ellen Hanley. A girl whom nobody would remember at all had not all those famous people been involved in one way or another in her tragic fate. And there was none more famous, of course, than Daniel O'Connell.
Gentlemen of the jury, you have heard the learned counsel for the prosecution warn you that the law seeks not blind vengeance, but justice. I would earnestly impress on you in particular the solemn obligation of dismissing from your minds any gossip or comments which you may have heard outside of this court. Any opinion or comment which you may have heard as to the prisoner's guilt, or for that matter, his innocence. John Scanlon has now been under detention for the past 4 months, and from our knowledge of human nature, it is too much to expect that he has not already been tried, not once, but many times, by the amateur lawyers and judges of the country cottage and the city club. Gentlemen of the jury, if you do not want to be false to your oath, you will put all such uninformed prejudgments resolutely out of your minds, and confine yourself strictly to the legal evidence that has been tendered in this court. The prosecution seeks to prove that the prisoner who now stands before you is guilty of the atrocious murder of his young and lovely wife within a few brief weeks of their marriage. And they ask you to believe that the impelling motive to this dreadful crime lay in the anticipated disapproval of his people when the fact of the marriage became public.
The courthouse in Limerick was crowded that day in mid-March in 1820. Before the court was a young man of good family, as they say, accused of the murder of a girl not 16 years old, whom he had secretly married. In the court, reporting the case for the local paper, was the young writer Gerald Griffin, who was later to use the story of Ellen Hanley for the plot of his novel, The Collegians. From the plot of that novel, Boucicault wrote his drama, The Colleen Bawn. And using the plot of The Colleen Bawn, Benedict composed his opera, The Lily of Killarney. But let us go back to the real Ellen Hanley and the man accused of her murder.
Now, gentlemen, there stands before you the prisoner, John Scanlon, a young man of good family, good education, and good upbringing. Young as he is, he has already seen service as a lieutenant in the Royal Marines, where habits of discipline and restraint form an essential part of his training. Is this the type of man who would descend to the murder of a young and trusting wife? And for no greater reason, according to the prosecution, than that his parents might not approve of the marriage. Who would hang a dog on this far-fetched theory?
But the evidence presented by the prosecution had been a good deal more than far-fetched theory. The prisoner, John Scanlon, made the acquaintance of Ellen Hanley, as near as can be gathered, towards the end of 1818, or early in the following year. She was the daughter of a farmer. Her mother was dead, and she had been adopted by an uncle, one John Connery, who resides in Ballycahan, not far from the home of the prisoner. Towards the end of June 1819, Scanlon, who may then have been genuinely in love with the young girl, prevailed on her to elope with him, and they went through a form of marriage, a secret marriage, in Limerick. There was good reason to doubt the validity of this marriage, but Ellen Hanley firmly believed that she was John Scanlon's lawful wife.
It has been suggested by the prosecution that Scanlon was not legally married to Ellen Hanley, that the marriage, in fact, was a bogus one. Very well. Let us take them at their word and see where the suggestion leads us. If Scanlon was not legally married to Ellen Hanley, then the whole case against him collapses for want of motive. There is no longer any necessity for him to worry about the social penalties for having married beneath him.
Why must you use those confounded Irish names? What is the matter? You're trembling like a bird caught in a trap.
Am I, Mavur? No, I mean, is it trembling I am, dear?
There's a dreadful smell of whiskey fumes and tobacco in this place. It smells like a shebeen. Who has been here?
Well, there was Father Tom, and Miles dropped in.
Nice company for my wife, a vagabond.
Who was it who made him so but me, dear? Before I saw you, John, Miles courted me, and I was kindly to the boy.
Damn it, Ellie, why must you remind me that my wife was ever in such a position?
I won't see him again if you're angry, dear. I'll tell him to go away, and he will because the boy loves me.
Better than I do, you mean?
No, I don't. Why do you speak so to your poor Ellie?
Speak? Why can't you say speak?
I'll try. I'm striving, 'tis mighty hard. But what wouldn't I undergo for your sake?
Sake!
Sake. Oh, is it to bother people entirely that they mix them up? Why can't they make them all the one way?
It is impossible. How can I present her as my wife? Oh, what an act of madness to tie myself to one so much beneath me. Beautiful, good though she is.
That was Boucicault's version of the relationship between Scanlon and Ellen.